My number one goal is to create generational wealth using my gifts and talents. However, earning enough money to sustain generations historically has been a huge challenge for Black families, a challenge established over 400 years ago. So here's what we're facing. According to Inequality.org, the median Black family with just over $3,500 owns just 2% of the wealth of the nearly $147,000 the median white family owns. The proportion of Black families with zero or negative wealth rose by 8.5% to 37% between 1983 and 2016. As with total wealth, home ownership is heavily skewed towards white families. In 2016, 72% of white families owned their home compared to just 44% of Black families. Closing the persistent wealth divide between white households and households of color is more than a matter of social justice, and we're talking about it today. So right now, I'm headed to meet up with Staci Lynch, a third-generation Native Atlantan who is rooted in community with a passion for racial equity and diversity. Staci has spent the last decade and a half working to elevate the quality of education accessible to all children. Education and a few other things we'll talk about today are what Staci believes to be the key to generational wealth. Why is the work you're doing so important?
Well, I think it's important because
I do too. Because we've talked before, and
Right, exactly.
I think your work is extremely important.
Yeah. So specifically, I am beginning to really focus on community. Right. So traditional philanthropy, I think, has invested in different ways and in different places, but community seems to be a really hard place for traditional philanthropy to invest. And so by that, when I say community, I mean, folks on the ground, non-traditional, not big, organizations that are well established with large staff. But they're really, the work I'm focused on is kind of just scrappy, grassroots people that are making change little by little. And so it's very unusual for a large investment to be put into those small spaces. So I think if we can get dollars to those people that are closest to issues on changing generational poverty, on what we can do to help people uplift themselves, how we can make schools stronger and better for our young people, how we can prepare the next generation.
Racial inequality in terms of the official poverty rate is also particularly acute for women of color. While the U.S. poverty rate for white men is 7%, it is 3 times that amount at 21.4% for Black women. Not to mention, Black women on average earn 61 cents per every dollar that a white man earns. The odds are obviously stacked against us, but I'm talking to a Black millennial woman today. Her name is Brittani Hill, about her experiences as a Black woman trying to create the life that she wants. And let me tell you, Brittani is sis, and sis is me. Talk about your expenses.
Oh yeah, okay. So daycare is $750 a month. That's rent for somebody, or at least the majority of rent. Diapers, food for myself, my car note, which is extremely excessive. I'm a victim of predatory loaning. I got trapped into a car loan in 2015, and we're upside down on the car, but we still gonna keep rolling. Right. Insurance. I just got my insurance down because I had an accident, which hiked things up. So that was crazy. Right. Small credit card debt. Right. But my expenses, they take up the majority of my income. Right. And the biggest expense is that $750 a month for childcare. Right. Which is crazy because prior to me having a child, before I even entered, the education industry, and I was working in corporate America, I still wasn't managing my money the way I should have. And you really couldn't tell me that I could save $700 a month. Like, how could I get that money? Mm-hmm. But here we are 2 years later. I've never missed a week of childcare. You make plans, you make accommodations for what's required, really.
Right. So what's been the most challenging part about all of this? Because you're working hard. I mean, you're doing your thing. It seems like you're busy and you're hustling and you're working. What's been the most challenging part about all of this?
Just doing it all, trying to figure out how to do it all. And, it's the summertime right now, so I have a lot of free time. Well, really, not really. My free time is just dedicated to perfecting my craft, to working on my other projects. But when the semester starts, I'm a cheerleading coach as well. So I don't have any time for anything extra.
Right.
My time is literally, I leave the house at 6:50 in the morning, and on game nights, I may not come back in with my daughter until 10 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah. So that's time at school, that's time at cheerleading practice. After practice, if there's an event, or something for me to work on, I'm doing that. I'm also in school, getting my master's.
For millennial women, like women in their 20s, like what do you think is important for them to be doing right now in order to decrease this? Because I know that it's first of all, the gap is getting wider, right? And it's affecting all of us. Yeah. So what do you think that we could be doing every day to decrease the wealth gap and increase the wealth for ourselves?
Well, first of all, not being a millennial myself, it's hard to think back, but I always start in my space. It starts with children and young people, right? Yeah. So I have little people, and it's very important to me and my husband to teach them financial literacy, understanding. We spend a lot of time actually talking the difference between what is having money and being rich and being wealthy, right? And having assets and having things that can leverage your money, because I think that's really where we are is, so that like Black folks, people of color, we're like on lap 1, and generational, more wealthy populations, broader communities are on like lap 10, right? Like 20.
100, yes.
So the question is, how do we start to catch up? And really understanding and being financial literate is huge, literate, right? Exactly. Understanding, I would say just save. That's something we talk a lot about with my kids. Leveraging then opportunities where you can begin to acquire assets, right? Yes. So if you can find a way to buy or purchase something that's then gonna make money for you, right? So leveraging that. So like just thinking long term and not so short term when it comes to how we spend our money and what we do. And the last thing I'll say is, I think it's a mind shift too. Like I really am thinking about how we can start to value experiences and not things, right? So we have
can you say that one more time? Yeah, because that's a big
huge, right? Because but there's a reason why. I think there's some history on why Black people, particularly people of color who have a desire to
flashy designer
exactly
things,
to want these things, and that's understandable.
Historically, we could imagine it comes from a place of
lack,
right?
Exactly. And so we're making up for that a little bit. And so, driving that nice car or having that bling or whatever it is, that feels good. And that is some self-esteem, and that is some proof of self. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting to see how we need to move through that in some ways, and then really rechanneling how we are spending our money and investing in ourselves. So
that's good.
Yeah, so that's one I think we have to, but that's some of our work, right? Like all of this as a community and as a group, we have to understand the history and then try to kind of work through it.
Right. What do you want to see for Black women in the future when it comes to our finances? And I know that it's a general question, so I know that everybody, it won't apply to everyone, but in general, what do you want to see?
I just feel that Black women are so strong, resilient, powerful, beautiful, just so many wonderful things. Yeah. And yet I think that we underestimate ourselves and we undersell ourselves and we take care of everyone else other than ourselves. And I just hope for a day, so I'll just share, I'm married to a white man, and I watch how he navigates the world, and I spend a lot of my time getting energy from wow, he just wakes up with confidence. He wakes up with this, and
that's a lot of empowerment right at home.
Yeah, and so for me, it's how can I learn and channel some of that? Right. And so I hope for Black women that we can continue to showcase and really come out of spaces so that we can really thrive in a way that sometimes I think we don't do, and particularly young women.
Yes. I was one of them.
Yes, and really support one another.
That's the big one right there.
That is
supporting
huge.
one another.
Yes, exactly, and finding intentional ways to say, how can I uplift this sister, or how am I going to be able to do this for this young lady as she's coming along?
Yes,
and so at this stage in my career, that's really what's important to me, how we can build something and help each other and progress.
Yeah. So by the end of 2016, I was determined to make a change in my life, to just take hold of things. And I started making vision boards. So the first one I did was in 2017. This piece right here is kind of a love letter that I wrote to myself, and literally until the day that my baby was born, I used to read this to myself every single day. And financial stability is on here. Live it up, earn big dollars, and my dream job would be my next exit. I literally wrote the words, I have a plan for what I'm spending and what I'm saving. And I've really tried the budgeting thing on my own in that year, but it wasn't good on my own yet. So in 2018, after my daughter was born, I got about 7 months left within that year to try some budgeting things out on my own, but I tried it again. In 2018, I did a lot better. I accomplished a lot more. My daughter literally just came in and set the bar, just added every piece of motivation that I needed, really.
What have you learned about financial health from your parents?
It's been a process of unlearning things that were deemed as regular or normal. And it's difficult. And, breaking habits is difficult because I like to eat out. I don't eat meat, so it's very expensive to eat healthy.
Yeah.
I like nice things.
I love eating out.
Me too.
I really do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to cut back on things. I locked my hair, so I don't have to worry about that. I can maintain my own hair. Mm-hmm. I stopped getting my nails done, but then you replace one thing with another thing, So it's been a learning process. This budgeting thing now, I'm really vocal about it. So my parents see me doing that a lot. They see me at the kitchen table. They hear me on the phone trying to make arrangements. So maybe things are rubbing off because at this point, things are shifting. And now, as an adult, I have the opportunity to teach my parents some things too.